The SCP Foundation is no stranger to containing dangerous entities capable of taking lives without discretion. But some of those entities aren't just mindless monsters. They're people with feelings and desires, stuck in an unfortunate circumstance, granted unnatural abilities by fate or chance. For a lot of human anomalies contained by the Foundation, it's not a stretch to say that they most likely wish they were ordinary, like anyone else, that they didn't have to be locked up in a containment cell for the rest of their lives. As the years have gone by, the Foundation, much like any organization, has changed a lot. More facilities have pushed for ethical and humane treatment of anomalies, some going so far as to integrate safe anomalies into the command structure of the organization itself, with groups such as the Ethics Committee keeping the Foundation's most hardline normalcy supremacists from mistreating or mishandling the objects they're supposed to contain. It's hard to imagine that anything would slip by the ever-watchful eye of the Foundation's surveillance network. But in an organization this large, incidents are still bound to happen. While anomalies can be dangerous, the Foundation as a whole backs the ideal that they should be given ethical treatment, at least as much as they can afford. For safer, less dangerous anomalies, this is a lot easier to enforce. To suggest rehabilitation efforts and recreational privileges to be given to an anomaly capable of ending human life at a moment's notice raises a lot more eyebrows, even in the most progressive sects of the Foundation. That line becomes blurred when dealing with intelligent entities. What defines intelligence? Sapience? What distinguishes SCP-682, the indestructible lizard with a massive disgust for all life, from SCP-239? An ultimately innocent little girl with world-breaking reality-bending powers. This is the sort of argument that divides the upper ranks of the Foundation. Is the integration of these anomalies the answer, or should they be sealed away forever? Should they be uniformly treated as monsters and freaks, unfit to ever leave their cells aside from being used in testing? Fortunately for the anomaly rights activists in the crowd, the modern Foundation is much more lenient than it had been in decades past, as research has proven that even dangerous anomalies, when given friendly treatment and basic rights, are more compliant, happy, and feel less strife about their situation. They can even be useful in some situations. Take SCP-5595, a sentient, sarcastic gumball machine located at Site-322, whose affinity for mathematics and harmless nature earned it a position at the site's accounting department, as part of a larger Foundation initiative called the Integration Program, which focused on integrating harmless anomalies into the site itself. In fact, SCP-5595's accounting skills were so great that it reduced Site-322's spending costs overall, and opened the higher-ups to the idea of integrating more anomalies across the organization. If you need another example, SCP-999, the adorable orange blob lovingly nicknamed the Tickle Monster, has been used as a therapy object at Site-19 for years. But there is one side of the debate that spurs more controversy than any other: using anomalies as living weapons. The Foundation has long abided by the directive that its objects are to be contained and studied, instead of used in the field, as an uncontrollable object is more dangerous outside of a cell than in. But the directive has changed, especially in recent times. The Chaos Insurgency, one of the Foundation's greatest foes, utilizes anomalies as weapons to achieve their goals, as do many other groups of interest. When trained human soldiers just aren't enough to contend with all the enemies the Foundation deals with, it's no wonder they begin to explore other options. And that's what brings us to the subject of today's video: the tale of SCP-4793, an anomaly trained as a brutalizing soldier who never really wanted to fight. This is the story of Androcles, a warrior with a blazing, savage fury in his body, but with a gentle, tender longing in his heart. It all started during a Foundation raid on a Chaos Insurgency operation located in a mountain cave in the southern region of Greece. The deadly insurgency, always on the prowl for more anomalous weapons to use in its unending battle against the Foundation, had hired a team of mercenaries to scour the region for potential anomalous activity. They came across something buried in the mountains they were certain was anomalous, and after communicating with their superiors, decided to dig it up and see what it was about. Naturally, word of such a discovery travels fast, And with how many undercover operatives the Foundation keeps embedded inside the insurgency in order to keep tabs on what their enemies are doing, it's no surprise that the Foundation mobilized its forces to get the drop on whatever this anomalous excavation site was. The mission was simple enough. MTF Upsilon 11, nicknamed Avalon's Wake, a team of combat specialists led by the skilled Captain Holly Shore, would infiltrate their camp and seize any anomalous objects in the mercenaries' possession. Getting past the relatively unguarded entrance was a cakewalk, as the task force took out a single guard and were able to slip deeper into the cave undetected. Inside, they found a massive pit, surrounded by colorful stalagmites and flowing waterfalls. At the center of the pit, next to a smattering of camping supplies and bright floodlights, was a large stone stele, a type of pillar most often used in ancient times that would be carved with important messages or stories. The details were grainy from a distance, but the team could make out an engraved image of a Spartan hoplite soldier on the pillar. Surrounding the stele were 5 mercenaries, armed and in the process of digging out the pillar from beneath the rock. Captain Shore knew that this was most likely the big object the Chaos Insurgency were after. She and her team took cover, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. But their wait wasn't long. One of the mercenaries shoveling the ground near the stele let out a scream. They had cut themselves, splattering a small amount of blood on the stone monument. The mercenaries panicked, readying their arms. They weren't sure what was going to happen next, but with enough experience in the field, they knew that introducing an anomaly to human blood often had severe consequences, and their suspicions were proven correct. A flash of light surrounded the cave, and from the stele emerged a warrior, clad in the same armor as the Spartan soldier engraved on the monument's carving. The entity was clearly confused and asked in English if the mercenary spoke Greek. Instead, they thrust their guns forward, screaming at the soldier to not move. The soldier was compliant, but one of the mercenaries, feeling it to be a cruel way to establish dominance over their new anomalous toy, shot at the soldier's exposed leg. What happened next was a whirlwind of swearing, blood, and combat. The mercenaries opened fire on the soldier, who retaliated back by using powerful hand-to-hand combat. For whatever reason, bullets just couldn't seem to harm the soldier. He tanked dozens of open shots across his body, the rounds deflecting off his armor. As the soldier picked up a mercenary by the throat, the Kevlar vest he was wearing suddenly flung itself from the man's body and integrated itself onto the soldier's armor. The mercenary immediately recognized this as one of the soldier's anomalous abilities, but was powerless to stop it as it was slammed against the stone wall, falling to the ground. The Foundation task force watched in awe as the soldier took out each of the mercenaries, one by one. Captain Shore, seeing that the soldier was continually begging the mercenaries to stop shooting at it the entire time, sensed that there was a peaceful, humane side to the entity, a stark contrast to the acts of brutality it used to dispatch the mercenaries. Shore told their men to move forward, but with their weapons lowered. The soldier, holding on to a knife it grabbed earlier, stood on guard, but surrendered without question when he realized the Foundation operatives were not there to fight him. Captain Shore introduced herself and her men as part of the Foundation, and the soldier, clearly upset and distraught over the carnage he caused, introduced himself as Androcles. The team promised Androcles they would take him somewhere safe, and he complied. Little would he know that his journey with the Foundation was just beginning. Androcles was given the designation SCP-4793, and initial assessment found him to be anomalously strong, with the ability to integrate any solid material into a weapon, either as a piece of armor, like it did with the mercenary's Kevlar vest, or as a weapon itself, such as turning the steel leg of a chair into a sharpened sword. Though this ability did have its limits, as Androcles had difficulty incorporating firearms and complex electronics as weapons or armor. On top of that, SCP-4793 was extremely durable and able to heal any wounds on its body almost instantaneously. Coupled with his highly trained fighting skills and raging fury, Androcles was a true warrior, capable of great power and might. But his wild side seemed to disappear when the heat of battle died down. One of Site-20's senior researchers, Dr. Fitzpatrick, was tasked with interviewing SCP-4793 weekly, and she discovered that SCP-4793 had a completely different element to his personality. He was intelligent, kind, gentle, and hated fighting. He couldn't remember much of his life from thousands of years ago, but he knew that he was a great warrior who caused mass destruction with his power alone. Androcles didn't want to be someone like that. He had an interest in history, in books, and learning why he woke up, what the world was like now, and why it had changed. Androcles wanted to know why there were metal birds in the sky and horseless chariots on the ground. Dr. Fitzpatrick found him to be a remarkable person and commended SCP-4793's behavior with access to various literature and history books, so he could learn about the things he desperately wanted to know. But most of all, she was taken back by how averse he was to becoming his past self, a heartless warrior who killed indiscriminately. It seemed as if Androcles was so traumatized by his past actions that he sealed away those memories to forget about them as best he could. But Site-20's director Jack Hargraves saw Androcles as a mere tool, something he could use to achieve a nefarious goal he had been planning for a long time. Hargraves wanted to use SCP-4793's raw power to benefit the Foundation. From his office, he sat back, imagining the unstoppable force that a trained Androcles would be. If he could force him to fight, and he knew he could, then the Foundation would have a deadly weapon in their hands. Something that would surely even the odds between the Chaos Insurgency and those other pesky groups of interest. Director Hargraves forced SCP-4793 to train his combat abilities in a variety of sparring sessions with Captain Shore, the task force captain who discovered him in the mountains. Hargraves' regimen was brutal, and he often threatened to blow up the explosive collars on SCP-4793's neck and wrists if he held back against Shore or disobeyed his orders. Androcles could take the explosion, but Shore would surely be caught in the blast, killing her. Androcles hated Hargraves, but cared about Shore, who showed him kindness and understood his difficult position. Over the next 2 years, Androcles would train weekly with Shore, sparring with each other using a variety of weapons, from swords to firearms. SCP-4793 still held back, not wanting to fight, and wanting even less to accidentally injure Holly Shore, who he was growing to see as a friend. In the meantime, Dr. Fitzpatrick continued to interview SCP-4793 weekly, also growing a friendship with the entity. But for as much as she cared about Androcles, she couldn't help him the way she wanted to. Hargraves was set on making SCP-4793 a functional weapon on the field, and he was growing impatient waiting for results. Hargraves was pushing Androcles beyond his comfort zone, switching up his sparring partners from Shore, who he trusted deeply, to other individuals or changing what weapons he had to use. Androcles hated this, not because he was scared to fight, but because he was anxious about what he could become if he let loose. He never wanted to be the monster that he knew he was capable of being. He never wanted to hurt someone. In the meantime, Hargraves began to have doubts about Androcles. His humanity and reluctance would slow him down in the field, keep him from being the perfect super soldier Hargraves wanted him to be. So he began development on another project, codenamed X-06. This mysterious weapons program was kept under wraps, limited in knowledge to only Hargraves and his most trusted men. If he couldn't have Androcles, he would simply have to do better, and he knew he would. While Hargraves worked in the shadows, the SCP-4793 research team uncovered a section of Androcles' past that he had forgotten. The stele he was trapped inside had an inscription on its front, written in ancient Greek. When it was translated and sent to Dr. Fitzpatrick, this is what it read. "Gather around me, children. I will tell you the story of sweet Androcles. Fierce as a pride of lions, and as cunning as a pack of wolves, he lived for nothing but battle. He was beloved by his countrymen and feared by his enemies, so much so that Ares himself strode down from Olympus to challenge him to single combat. For 10 days they fought a terrible duel, their blades cutting earth into islands and the sparks turning mountains into forges for Hephaestus. Impressed, he granted Androcles a boon. So long as he fought, he would never know defeat or age, and by mixing his ichor with Androcles' blood, Ares declared him kin to the gods themselves. As he came to bear on the world, he met his match in a woman from a distant land. With skin of white as sand covered in blues from the ocean, she blazed in his eyes like Helios' chariot. Together the mountains bowed before them, but even as Eros' arrow brought them together, and Eros split them apart, for jealous Ares saw his favored love something other than himself. With his guiding star gone, Androcles tore the bones of the earth itself. With his rage and lust for battle extinguished, he turned the battlefield into twin mountains. With his purpose lost, he was entombed there forevermore. Androcles was shaken by the revelations of his warrior past, and in the present, he couldn't shake the feelings that Captain Shore reminded him of his past lover. The feeling was so strong that during a sparring session, Androcles passed out, overwhelmed by how much she reminded him of her, the woman who he remembered to be his wife, Arabelle. Androcles continued to confide in Dr. Fitzpatrick about his feelings about Captain Shore, and especially about fighting for the Foundation. He didn't understand this strange new world or what exactly he would be fighting for, and the stories he heard about previous attempts to utilize anomalous soldiers in battle terrified him. The story of SCP-076 Abel killing his entire task force team after losing control haunted him at night. He never wanted to become that. But Hargraves' secret project reached its completion before Androcles could be molded into the perfect warrior. Little did Hargraves know, however, that Fitzpatrick was keeping tabs on all of his shady behavior, in hopes of one day exposing him for the monster that he was to the Ethics Committee, or maybe even the Overseer Council. Still, she took the job, wanting to see what monstrosity Hargraves had created as a result of his experiments. Fitzpatrick was shocked to see it. Hargraves' secret experiment was a black, winged, clawed creature with way too many teeth. From behind its containment cylinder, it grinned and chuckled an inhuman laugh. Hargraves was truly creating monsters. As Hargraves explained, the creature had near-human intelligence and could reproduce asexually, meaning all it took was one of them for it to multiply. With this new anomaly, he could revolutionize the Foundation's ways of waging war. A perfect soldier, one that wouldn't be held back by human emotion. Fitzpatrick voiced her concern but was cut short by Hargraves suddenly panicking. He noticed that there was only one X-06 entity in the cylinder, when he was sure there were two. And suddenly from the ceiling, one of the entities fell to the ground, flapping its wings and screaming in the researchers' faces. The worst had happened. The X-06 entities had broken free, and if they weren't stopped soon, they would run rampant over Site-20. The two fled for safety, but the horrifying creature chased after them. Androcles and Captain Shore soon learned of the containment breach as well, after their sparring session was cut short by a creature breaking into the room. Androcles made short work of it, but it was too late. Site-20 was overrun with Hargraves' beasts. There were hundreds of them, and those numbers would continue to grow. They infiltrated the entire facility, leaving Androcles and Captain Shore with one option: to fight. Androcles didn't want to do it, but this was different. He needed to be a hero and save the people still trapped in Site-20's facilities. He would have to use force, but if he was helping others, then it was justified, he reluctantly told himself. Still, he hated it. And as Captain Shore and her task force as well as SCP-4793 moved through Site-20, taking out one entity after another, Androcles realized how hopeless the situation was looking. There were simply too many of them. They needed to focus their efforts on getting people out of the site rather than hoping to fight back. While most personnel were slaughtered in the carnage, at the site's D-Class block, the team found a holdout of guards and D-Class, who were conveniently relocated to an above-ground elevator that could escort them safely out of the site. Androcles made the decision there to let Captain Shore and her men, as well as the survivors, get to the surface, where he would stay below and fight. He didn't want to do it, but Androcles had a plan. Shore didn't want to leave him behind, but she had no choice. After parting in the heat of an X-06 ambush on the block, Androcles was alone, while the survivors were on the surface. Fighting without holding back, Androcles tore through hundreds of X-06 entities, going deeper and deeper into the site. His plan was dangerous, but it would save everyone at the expense of his own life. Androcles knew how dangerous those X-06 entities could be if they were let loose into the world, and that was why he decided he would blow up Site-20's reactor, destroying both himself, the site, and every single creature. As he was about to do just that, Androcles found Director Hargraves in the rubble of the reactor room. Hargrave was heavily wounded, and Androcles felt such rage and anger towards the man, especially when he revealed that the X-06 creatures were genetically engineered from Androcles' own blood. But he didn't hurt him. He was better than the monster Hargraves saw him as. Instead, Androcles set Hargraves up on the elevator to the surface, knowing that the Overseer Council would serve a far worse punishment than he ever could. Before blowing up the reactor, Androcles recorded one last message. He addressed it to Holly Shore, the captain who had shown him so much kindness. I was born to a farmer and grew into a warrior. I battled Ares to a standstill. I won war single-handedly. Then I met my wife. We were set to claim the world, two immortals who wanted to bring a chaotic world some semblance of peace. And then Ares killed her, and I lost everything. And now I'm here, alone, adrift, a stranger surrounded by even stranger things. But within you, I see the spark I saw in her, a burning desire to make the world better. It makes me want to be better. And I don't know if you feel the same, or whether I'll get out of here, but I will fight for you. Die if I have to. I love you. And with that, Androcles, one of the greatest warriors the Foundation had ever known, sacrificed his life to blow up Site-20's nuclear reactor, destroying the facility and saving the world from Hargraves' deadly creatures. To those who knew him, especially Captain Shore, he will never be forgotten, because true heroes never really die. Now go check out what actually happened to Major Alexei Belitrov, SCP-4273 Tail, and SCP-507 Reluctant Dimension Hopper for more journeys into the lives and minds of the Foundation's most sympathetic prisoners.